Mr. North02.
Hello, thanks for having me.
There's at least 10 people that are super psyched to see this.
I've seen them in my comment sections. When are you guys going to make a video?
Where do you think that picture is? Do you have a guess?
I think, because I've already researched it for this video, I think, is it PEDRA FURADA?
It is. PEDRA FURADA is one of the most controversial sites in all of the Americas. It is claimed by some that humans occupied this site at least 32,000 years ago, and potentially much, much older than that. Sometimes when an old site is found like this, there's a lot of debating about the accuracy of the dates. But what's interesting at PEDRA FURADA is not the dating. That seems to be on pretty solid ground. The debate is whether these artifacts were actually made by humans. Let's get into it. Regardless of any controversy about the dating and the artifacts and any of that, PEDRA FURADA is absolutely one of the most stunning archaeological sites in the Americas. The site is this huge series of cliffs and rock faces, some of them absolutely covered in prehistoric art. Animals, peoples, strange symbols, maybe even some people smooching. I don't know though. Do you think this is a kiss, or do you think this is flamingos or something? What would you bet?
I don't know. It kind of looks like birds, but you know, the heads kind of look like humans or ostriches. Wait, it's in South America. There's no. But they had a bunch of weird birds there, I think.
I think they have flamingos in Brazil. I'd love to visit. People of Brazil, please somehow get me over there. It looks fantastic. And I want to go to Carnival. I want to dance. These paintings, as spectacular as they are, date to within the last 12,000 years, many of them probably within the last 6,000 years, 6 to 10,000 years. The debate about when humans first arrived at this place began in 1986. Carbon-14 dates point to man in the Americas 32,000 years ago, by Guidon and Delibries. At the time, there was a big debate as to whether any site in the Americas was older than 13,000 years ago. This was called the Clovis First hypothesis. So when this, date of 32,000 years ago was published, it certainly put the cat amongst the pigeons. According to Google Scholar, this paper has been cited 380 times. So there's been a lot of debate, basically. There's been a lot of back and forth. And for good reason. This debate is not for nothing. To put that into context, there's a big debate at the minute about whether Homo sapiens left Africa at around 47,000 years ago, 50,000 years ago. It's sort of getting close to the time that we think out of Africa happened, and yet this site is all the way in Brazil. Let's dig into where these dates come from, because that's the first challenge, really. Some of these radiocarbon dates are coming from little charcoal things, concentrations of charcoal. I think, there's one here. I don't know if you can see that charcoal there.
Oh. And what is that dated to?
Looks like around 47,000 years BP.
Really?
And here's where the first human versus non-human debate begins. Supporters of the site argue that this charcoal is coming from hearths. I'll show one of you on the screen here now. You can see this piece of charcoal surrounded by rocks. This is identified as a hearth, where humans sat around the fire, 30, 40,000 years ago. Critics of this idea argue that these hearths are not really structured, that it's not really clear that these rocks are forming a circle, and sometimes this charcoal is outside the middle of these hearths, which is not where you might expect it to be. They wonder if it's not caused by natural fires. That charcoal is being sort of blown in or just sort of burnt vegetation that's right under this rock shelter. One thing to note when I was reading this is that apparently the sediment, the buildup of earth at this site, is very, 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 very slow. I hope I don't get this wrong because it's really, really slow. They're estimating 0.1 millimeters a year. The critics argue that rocks that are right next to each other could be separated by centuries. This is just centuries and centuries and centuries of just rocks and wildfires just happening to accumulate under this shelter. So these are some of the artifacts that have been identified as tools by some of the excavators. As you can see, they're very simple tools, sort of just pebble technology, cores and flakes being removed from pebbles. There's nothing really sophisticated. There's no evidence of any sophisticated flint knapping going on at these earlier times. For example, later on, 12,000 years ago roughly, humans were making these fishtail points, and you can find them across South America. Much more sophisticated stuff, obviously produced by humans. It honestly almost reminds me of like older one points, like the sort of technology humans or hominins were using 3 million years ago. If this site was a hominin site somewhere in Africa, you might be inclined to believe it, think there's something going on here. But so much later in time, produced by anatomically modern humans, it seems very simple, very, very simple. Can you guess what the debate is about these stone tools?
I think I have heard that the idea is that they might have been made by like capuchin monkeys or something.
Yes. Basically, exactly. I would not want to be doing like early Paleolithic archaeology in a place where capuchin monkeys exist.
No way.
Those cheeky buggers smashing nuts. They're smashing their nuts, guys. There's no other way to say it. I have a test for you. I'm afraid I'm going to put you to the test. I'm going to show you 3 images. This is image number 1. Image number 2. Image number 3. 2 of these were made by a capuchin. 1 is argued to have been made by a human. Can you guess which one? Which one was the one made by a human? I can remove. This is number 1.
Okay.
Number 2, number 3.
I'd say number 3.
Number 3 made by a human.
Yes, I got it.
Is that because it's like they can refit the flakes? Why are you thinking that?
Well, they look like they have. Here, let me get a flake. Stone tools all over my house. Because it looks like, they were detached and they got that bulb of percussion behind them, right?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, a little bit.
So that's what it made it look like. It was flint knapped, or multiple next to each other too. Seems suspicious.
Interesting. This was made by a capuchin. I'm afraid you are incorrect.
No way.
These are retrofitted flakes after a capuchin has used the rock to bash something open.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
As is this one. This is also a flake produced by a capuchin. And this are the ones argued to be produced by humans at PEDRA FURADA.
Huh.
Actually, I heard in one account of the archaeologists from PEDRA FURADA describe how capuchins literally were throwing rocks at them off the top of this rock face when they're trying to do excavations. These bloody capuchins, man. But the criticism doesn't just sort of rely on the shape of these tools. Something else going on here. So the PEDRA FURADA site, as I mentioned, is under this rock shelter, this rock face. There are actually 2 chutes that lead down to the bottom of it that were almost certainly caused by water erosion. These cobbles, as far as I'm aware, coming from a deposit on the top of the rock face. Many rocks are falling from this shelter. So, for example, in a 4x4 excavation, 1,500 stones were removed, of which 100 were identified as tools. You can see here a picture of the deposit of the ground. It's full of rocks, guys. It's full of rocks. For critics of the site, the matter is this. Sure, some of these rocks are broken in perhaps interesting ways, but in the course of thousands upon thousands of years of rocks falling, could that just have happened? Could that just have happened? But I think the skepticism is warranted for another simple fact, that all of the tools found at PEDRA FURADA, every single one, as far as I'm aware, could be wrong, but as far as I'm aware, every single one is made from cobbles that fell from the cliff. There isn't any transportation of any other rock to this area. Now, later on, in the times when humans were for sure certainly living there, doing the art and all of this, they are gathering flint from, I think, a couple of miles away, bringing it to the site because it's a better rock. It's just a better rock for making tools. Sharper, naps easier. Naps easier? Easier? Is easier a word? This situation is also similar for other nearby sites that have also got these very old alleged dates, like Toca de Tira Peia. I'm sorry, I'm so bad at saying these names. These are also just like quartzite cobbles that have been found naturally in that area. There's no human transportation of any better stone or any better material at all. And there's also no organic evidence of human activity either. No animal bones found around these fires, no cut marks or butchered things that these tools were used on. I cannot solve this debate. I cannot decide for you. Do you believe that this is a sort of very, very conservative human material culture? Or do you think, in the twists and turns of history, in the twists and turns of Capuchin rock throwing, the rocks at a site with a lot of rocks could have broken in interesting ways? That's the debate at PEDRA FURADA. For me personally, it's very easy to be skeptical, especially considering the lack of supporting evidence. Or is there? Or is there? Bum 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 bum. I don't suppose you want to tell us what a glyptodon is?
Man, they're I forget the name of the whole family and stuff, but they're related to anteaters and armadillos, I believe. And they're just big, massive, armored animals. They have like 1,800 different osteoderms. It's like a big turtle shell. Some of them even have these crazy tail clubs. I talk about it in my video, but it's like they literally had a tail club like a ankylosaur, like one of those dinosaurs that,
Yeah.
which is pretty insane. And and definitely there's a lot of evidence, that they were hunted. But what is this example from?
Mr. North02 has a brilliant video out at the minute, all about the extinct animals that once roamed the Americas. Do go check it out. The link is down below. It's a banger for sure, and I do have to heartily apologize to North02 for getting my half of this collaboration out several weeks after his. But he doesn't have kids, I do, so I'm blaming them. The reason I asked him about those prehistoric tanks, though, those incredible glyptodons, is because recently one was excavated near Buenos Aires in Argentina. And it could be very important to this whole debate around when humans reached the Americas. Yes, here we go.
Wow.
So they argue that it features these marks that were evidence of butchery. You can see them here, scratches along the lines here, scratches there, there.
And when does it date to, the site?
This dates to 21,000 to 20,811 years ago.
Wow.
And what's particularly good about this site is that I believe they were able to get the dates directly from these samples, right? Because often, if, for example, you're talking about the archaeological site at White Sands or these rocks that we're looking at PEDRA FURADA, you can't directly date them, in a sense. But I believe that this glyptodon was directly dated. Whatever happened to it, it died at this time. Now, there are other processes in the ground that can cause these marks on bones, trampling from other animals, just the churning of sediment, things like this. All of this can leave the marks on the bones, but the authors, of course, are aware of all of this, and they still think that the easiest explanation for some of these marks is human activity. It is human activity. I know saying it looks like is the lowest form of evidence there is, but it does look like it. It does look like it to me a little bit. And if that's right, then this glyptodon was killed by humans 21,000 years ago. A very long time ago. This isn't the only site that has come to life in recent years around this 20,000 year time period. Another very famous one in North America is White Sands. Humans seemingly were walking along the shores of an ancient lake 20,000+ years ago. And actually, they just recently believe that they found track marks of a sort of travois. I don't know how to say this any other way. A travois, perhaps. Some way that humans were carrying heavy goods do these sites around 20,000 years ago, do they add more credibility to what's going on at Pedra Furada and in Brazil? The only enigma that remains for me, I'll pull this up. This is a map of the distribution of Paleo-Indian points. So we're talking like Clovis and Folsom points in North America. And as you can see, there's loads, coast to coast, from Alaska to Mexico. I believe the ones in Mexico are even the oldest. And it's just, why don't we have this huge spread of tools for people 20,000 years ago? If they were in White Sands, if they made it to Brazil, why can't we find their tools? Why aren't their tools as common as this? I don't know. I don't know what you think about that.
I mean, I think it's certainly possible that I was looking at like the earliest Australian sites the other day, and like a lot of these people seem to only really use like pretty, they're stone flakes that are clearly made by people, but like they're simple tools, right? They're not super complicated, but with one of these you can easily cut up a deer or any kind of animal you want, and you can shape like wooden spears and make other tools out of them as well. So it's certainly possible that the first people to make it into the Americas just had like a very, relatively simple tool technology where you don't just look at this and go, that's an arrowhead, or, that's a biface. It's like more enigmatic slightly. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. You'd think it would be a lot better if they had some really easily identifiable points like, Clovis points or fishtail points. But
yeah, it is ambiguous. There could have been a much simpler technology. I suppose you're right. There was this good quote by one of the critics of these sites. Well, I don't know how critical he is, but he certainly wrote a paper questioning the finds. Yeah, ambiguity and the debates on the early peopling of South America by Luis Alberto Borrero. He had this great quote. However, the existence of ambiguity is not a reason to abandon the study of any site, but should be an impulse for further research. In the end, acceptance or rejection of particular evidence should be the result of balanced research, which will only be possible if ambiguity is reduced. So, there's something going on in South America, and we've just got to dig more to find out what it is. Basically, we just need more examples.